Base, this is Ranger Anderson. Sector 19. I see something moving. It's crossing fast, too fast to be human. Wait, it's stopped. It's upright. Two legs, maybe. I can't see ahead, but the outline is there. It's watching me. Base, do you read me? It's coming closer. God help me, it's speaking my name. I am Ranger Kyle Anderson, raised along the high plains bordering Texas and New Mexico, now an agent of the U.S. Border Patrol assigned to the remote and unforgiving wilderness of Sector 19. I believed I had seen all the desert could offer: smugglers slipping in the dust, the silent march of coyotes under starlight, heat shimmering over ridges. But what I encountered that night shattered every assumption I ever held. My shift began like any other. Moonless, oppressive silence, a battered ATV, a gravel path running into dunes, and sensor alerts blinking far off in the dark. The motion detector flagged something: movement too low, too fluid for any known intruder. I drove until the road ended, then pressed on foot into unlit dunes, relying on night vision and instinct. In those lonely miles, the world outside my narrow beam of light felt distant, like a memory fading. And then I saw it. A figure, crouched in the folds of shifting sand and rock, elongated, featureless. I stopped dead. My pulse thundered. The night contracted around me. I raised my flashlight. The beam sliced across nothing, and yet the shape resolved itself into a tall silhouette, slender limbs rising as though reaching for air. No face, no discernible features, only a blur of dark matter where eyes and mouth should be. I shouted. My voice echoed. Nothing answered. The shape stood perfectly still. My breath caught. I flicked the light, but the form dissolved. The beam passed through empty space, leaving me gasping in the darkness. I radioed base. Silence. No reply. My channel was dead. The world beyond my headset ceased to exist. My only companion became that echo of presence, that emptiness that hovered around me. I stumbled back, disoriented, slipping across dune ridges as though the desert itself had turned to shifting quicksand beneath my boots. When I reached our outpost hours later, skin cold, mind reeling. The moment we crossed the boundary, the world warped. Compasses spun, radios screamed, temperature plunged. We followed what looked like footprints, shallow depressions in the dust that dissolved into nothingness within meters. The path twisted in impossible arcs, cutting corners a human never could. Around 3:12 a.m., we caught it. A low, drawn-out moan reverberated across the dunes, vibrating through our bones. It sounded like someone calling in agony. Each of us froze, straining to locate its origin. Then, behind us, something appeared. Just beyond the edge of our lights, stepping between dunes, balancing upright. I glimpsed a serrated spine, long limbs, and for a gut-wrenching second, two dim, mirrored points where eyes would have been. It vanished instantly. Later, the audio replay confirmed the horror. Distorted echoes of my own voice whispering, "Kyle, come, follow," then others, "Behind you, turn around." Voices from empty dunes. It imitated me, my comrades, twisted reflections in a broken mirror. We tried to engage it. We lured it with thermal decoys, set up sensor grids. When it appeared, non-lethal rounds passed through it, as though it were made of vapor. It responded by warping space. Tremors jolted us, disorienting pulses knocked us off balance. Some agents collapsed, gasping, hearing their own screams ring in their heads. Then, as silently as it appeared, it receded. It left nothing but scorch marks, a fragment of unknown metal fused to native rock, hums in the electromagnetic field. We confiscated that fragment. Inside our sealed lab, scientists examined it. No known alloy, subtle energy fluctuations, internal structures that defied classification. Weeks later, agents began vanishing. Log files dissolved. Communications broke. Remote cameras flickered. In remote border ghost towns, civilians reported seeing the same faceless figure staring from abandoned buildings, hearing voices echoing their own names in wind-blown halls. My superiors offered me silence, promotion, reassignment, removal from active duty. If I stayed quiet. But I cannot. This is my testimony. I speak now, with every tremor in my bones, to tell you what the desert hides. What moved in Sector 19 was not human. The desert doesn't forgive, and it never forgets. This story begins in a barren stretch of the Arizona-Mexico border, miles from the nearest paved road, where heat bakes the sand by day and cold strips the air by night. A place marked not only by cartel smuggling and desperate crossings, but by something older, something whispered about by agents who dare not write it in their reports. They call it Sector 19, though on the maps it's nothing more than a grid of coordinates etched into rock and dust. Radios die here without reason, patrol drones veer off course, and sometimes agents swear they see figures standing in the distance, silent, unblinking, waiting for the desert to swallow them whole. This is where our story follows Agent Daniel Ramirez, a veteran of more than 12 years on the line. Ramirez had seen it all: smuggling tunnels, shootouts, exhausted migrants staggering through thorn and stone. Nothing surprised him anymore, or so he believed. On the night of August 14th, Ramirez drew a routine shift. Just another patrol along the ridgelines, another night of dust in his lungs and silence in his ears. His assignment? Check a motion alarm triggered deep in Sector 19, far from any crossing point. At first, it was nothing unusual. He drove out beneath a sky scattered with stars, headlights carving tunnels through the dark, thinking of nothing more than finishing his shift and returning to his bunk. But the desert had other plans. As his vehicle rolled to a stop on the edge of the detection zone, Ramirez stepped out into silence. The kind of silence that presses down like weight on the chest, a silence too complete for even insects to break. He adjusted his gear, tapped his radio, and began the long walk into the dunes. Every step carried him deeper into a place agents whispered about, but never admitted fearing. A place where reports vanish, files go missing, and strange encounters are dismissed as heat mirages. But Ramirez would soon learn. The desert keeps its secrets until it decides to show them. And once it does, nothing looks the same again. He thought it was just another false alarm. He was wrong. Agent Ramirez wasn't alone that night. Riding with him was a rookie, Agent Tyler Davis, fresh out of training. Davis was eager, sharp-eyed, still carrying the energy of someone who hadn't yet learned what the desert could take from a man. For Ramirez, it was supposed to be another night of teaching, pointing out the signs of movement, explaining how smugglers masked their trails, and showing the rookie how to trust the silence as much as the sound. But only minutes into their sweep, the first sensor tripped. A flashing light on the handheld unit, then another, then another. 3 consecutive alarms, each further into the dead ground of Sector 19. At first, Ramirez assumed a group was moving fast. Migrants, maybe. Or cartel scouts darting across ridges. Nothing new. They parked the vehicle, killed the headlights, and advanced on foot. The sand was cold under their boots, crunching softly as they moved toward the coordinates. Both men swept their beams across the emptiness. The rookie whispered, "You see that?" Ramirez hushed him. There it was. Tracks. Not boot prints, not sneakers, bare feet. Human at first glance, but wrong. Each print was elongated, nearly twice the length of a normal foot, pressed deep into the sand as though something impossibly heavy had passed through. Ramirez crouched, running a gloved hand along the impression. The edges were crisp, not blown soft by wind. Fresh. Maybe someone carrying weight, Davis suggested. But Ramirez shook his head. The depth was too consistent, the stride too long. No migrant, no smuggler walked like this. Then the radios crackled. A burst of static, followed by a fractured voice. "Stay out. Sector 19. Do not engage. Repeat. Do not..." The message cut, swallowed in static. Ramirez froze. He hadn't keyed his mic. Neither had Davis. The voice was official, urgent, but it came through a frequency they weren't tuned to. The rookie looked at him wide-eyed. Sir, that was meant for us. Ramirez's stomach sank. They were already standing in Sector 19, already following the trail. And the desert, in its silence, seemed to breathe around them. They pushed forward, step by cautious step, when a sharp buzz on Ramirez's wrist monitor signaled the drone feed. Their small heat sensor unit, circling overhead, locked onto movement in the basin below. At first, the thermal image was faint, blurred against the chill desert floor. Then it surged forward, the shape exploding into speed, 40, maybe 45 miles an hour, darting low to the ground on all fours. Ramirez stiffened. That's not a vehicle. Davis leaned close, staring at the display. The heat signature bolted across the grid, weaving through brush and stone, then stopped. Suddenly. No gradual slowing, no stumble, just frozen, upright. 2 legs. The rookie whispered what Ramirez was already thinking. No human moves like that. Within seconds, they were running back to the truck, throwing the gear in the bed, engine roaring to life. The tires tore through gravel as Ramirez swung the headlights across the desert scrub. For flashes at a time, he caught it, just at the edge of vision. A tall, thin silhouette darting between mesquite and boulders, always ahead, always leading. "Keep eyes on it," Ramirez barked, adrenaline tightening his chest. The rookie gripped the dash, beam of the handheld spotlight chasing empty ground. Then they saw where it went. The figure slid down a gully and into the mouth of a culvert tunnel, a storm drain that cut beneath the border fence, black as pitch, wide enough for a man to walk through. Ramirez killed the engine. The desert fell back into silence, broken only by the cooling tick of metal. They stood at the mouth of the tunnel, flashlights trembling as beams struck concrete walls scarred with graffiti and rust. The air that drifted out was colder than it should have been, damp, as if the tunnel breathed. Davis muttered, "We're not supposed to follow it." But Ramirez had already taken a step inside. His boots echoed against hollow stone. That's when he froze. From deep in the tunnel, faint, broken, came a voice. His own voice. "Help me. I'm stuck. Ramirez, help." The sound wasn't playback. It wasn't static. It was him, calling out in panic, echoing back from the dark, though his lips hadn't moved. Davis backed toward the entrance, whispering, "That's you. That's your voice." The tunnel stretched ahead, swallowing their light in damp black. Every step echoed louder than it should, as if the walls leaned in to listen. Ramirez's beam swept across the concrete, pausing on a pile of fabric collapsed against the wall. He crouched, shredded clothing, tatters of green Border Patrol uniform, torn as though by claws or blades. Next to it, scuffed government-issued boots, their leather split, laces hanging loose, smeared with something dark that had dried thick in the cracks. Blood. Davis shifted nervously, his own flashlight shaking. Someone didn't just lose that. Someone was left here. Ramirez's hand froze on what lay half-buried beneath the rags. A plastic rectangle, cracked, stained, but unmistakable. An ID card. Border Patrol issue. He wiped the surface with his glove, and the name seared his brain. It belonged to Agent Marco Villalobos, a man who, according to official records, had died 3 years earlier in a desert shootout miles from here. Ramirez had attended his memorial. He'd seen the folded flag given to his widow. Yet here was Villalobos's badge, lying in the dark. Behind him, Davis's voice dropped to a whisper. "He's right there." Ramirez spun, beam slicing through the gloom. His light locked onto a shape crouched in the passageway. At first glance, it looked like a man squatting low, waiting. But the longer the light clung to it, the more wrong it became. The arms were too long, dragging toward the ground. The torso too narrow, stretched, like skin pulled across broken frames. And the head sat tilted at an angle no human spine could allow. The figure didn't move. It studied them. Then, without warning, it twitched. The the head jerking upright, limbs flexing in staccato bursts. And then it crawled, impossibly fast, scraping forward on hands and feet like an animal, but with a human outline that made Ramirez's gut turn to stone. Both men stumbled back, boots scraping against concrete. Their radios exploded with noise. Not static, voices. Ramirez's own voice, shouting. Davis's voice, crying out. Theirs, layered over each other, repeated in real time. Every word they spoke thrown back at them in perfect mimicry. "Run!" Davis screamed. "Run!" the radio screamed back. The tunnel shook with echoes of themselves, and still, the thing crawled closer. Ramirez's training kicked in before thought could form. His sidearm cleared leather, muzzle flash tearing the dark as he emptied round after round into the advancing shape. Each shot cracked against concrete, smoke filling the tunnel, brass shells clattering at his boots. But the thing didn't recoil. It didn't flinch. The bullets passed through it like smoke through glass, and still it crawled closer, head jerking, arms pulling it forward with impossible speed. "Move!" Ramirez roared, grabbing Davis by the vest and dragging him backward out of the culvert. They burst into open desert, breath ragged, flashlights bouncing wildly across sand and scrub. Behind them, the tunnel mouth yawned, empty, but Ramirez felt it, felt eyes fixed on their backs. They scrambled into the truck. Ramirez jammed the key, engine turning once, twice, then dying. The dashboard lights dimmed to black. He tried again, frantic, but the battery was drained as though something had leached it dry. From the rearview mirror, in the faint glow of the moon, he saw it. Not charging this time. Walking. Slow, deliberate steps, always just at the edge of the light. Its outlines swayed unnaturally, limbs bending in wrong directions. But it never hurried. It didn't need to. "Out! We run!" Ramirez barked. They bolted, boots pounding over dust, lungs tearing in the cold air. Each time Ramirez glanced over his shoulder, the thing was there, closer, but never running. Always walking, as if it had all the time in the world. Then, silence beside him. He glanced to his right. Davis was gone. No scream, no struggle, no trace. 1 second he was sprinting, his breath ragged in Ramirez's ear. The next he had vanished into empty desert. His footprints ended mid-stride, swallowed by nothing. "Davis!" Ramirez bellowed, but only his own voice echoed back, carried thin on the wind. He stumbled, legs burning, until a blaze of light seared the darkness ahead. Headlights. Another patrol unit cresting the ridge, beams cutting across the basin. Ramirez staggered forward, waving his arms, collapsing into the dirt as the vehicle skidded to a halt. Backup agents poured out, weapons raised. Ramirez spun to point behind him, but the desert was empty. The footprints that should have been gouged deep in sand were gone. The tunnel where it all began lay dark and silent, as though it had never been touched. And Ramirez, gasping in the glare of headlights, realized the thing had left him alive, alone, so he would be the one to carry its story back. Back at the station, Ramirez's hands still shook as he typed the report. He detailed everything: the shredded uniform, the ID card of a man long dead, the thing in the tunnel, Davis vanishing mid-stride, the voices in the radio. He included the footprints, the drained battery, the failed sidearm response. Every detail, every word, because he knew the truth mattered. But when the report came back from review, it was no longer his. The language had been stripped bare, rewritten in cold, bureaucratic shorthand. Unconfirmed wildlife activity. 2 agents startled by possible large predator. Rookie Agent Davis presumed lost in terrain. Ramirez slammed the folder shut, stormed into his supervisor's office. A senior officer, gray at the temples, leaned back in his chair as if waiting for this confrontation. "You changed my report," Ramirez accused. The officer didn't blink. "Your report was classified. What remains is the official version. You can't just erase him. Davis is gone." The man cut him off with a flat stare. "You weren't supposed to go into Sector 19. The words hung heavy in the air. Not, "We didn't believe you." Not, "You're mistaken." Just a statement, quiet and deliberate, like a verdict. Ramirez left that office with more questions than answers, and the desert, as always, offered none. Weeks passed. The search for Davis ended with nothing more than a folded flag delivered to his family. Officially, he was lost in rough terrain. Unofficially, Ramirez knew better. He couldn't let it go. One night, unable to sleep, he drove the back roads alone. Dust rose in the headlights, miles of nothing passing beneath his wheels, when he saw it. Parked on the shoulder, 40 miles from where Davis vanished. A truck. Davis's truck. The engine was still running, headlights burning into the dark. Driver's door wide open, as if he'd stepped out only seconds before. Ramirez approached cautiously, hand on his weapon. The cab was empty, the ground around it untouched, no footprints leading away. Then, the radio hissed. He leaned closer, heart pounding. Through the static came a voice, his own voice. "Ramirez, help me." Ramirez never filed another report after that night. Within a month, he handed in his badge, turned over his weapon, and walked away from the Border Patrol for good. Officially, he cited exhaustion, the toll of long years in the desert. Unofficially, he carried a truth no one wanted to hear, a truth buried beneath altered files and silenced voices. For years, he kept his mouth shut. The nightmares were enough, and the weight of silence nearly broke him. But eventually, with nothing left to lose, Ramirez told his story. He told it to anyone who would listen, though most laughed or dismissed him as another burned-out agent who'd spent too many nights alone under desert stars. Then came the final blow. A manila envelope slid across his table one winter evening. No return address, no explanation. Inside, photographs, grainy, clinical. A body under a sheet, tagged as Agent Tyler Davis. They told Ramirez this was proof, closure. But the photos revealed something else entirely. The figure on that table wasn't Davis, at least not anymore. The uniform fit, the build was right. But the face, there was no face. Only smooth, pale skin stretched tight, featureless as wet clay. Ramirez said he dropped the pictures, bile rising in his throat. And from then on, he spoke only one warning. His voice lowered, trembling, almost a whisper. "If you're near the border at night, don't follow movement in the desert. It's not human, and it wants to wear you." The tape ends with static. Distorted radio chatter bleeds through, fractured voices, overlapping, repeating the listener's own breath back at them, until finally, the desert silence returns.